Lucky day. That deposit from the IRS sitting there, glowing on your screen, feels like a gift from the financial gods. But before you even think about touching that money, you need to hear this brutal truth that could save you from a nightmare that's already destroying thousands of American families right now. Drop a comment below saying, "I checked," if you're going to verify your account after watching this, and hit subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal could be the difference between financial freedom and absolute devastation. The IRS doesn't make mistakes often, but when they do, they make them big. And right now, across America, from California to New York, from Texas to Florida, millions of people are waking up to discover extra money in their accounts. Some are seeing hundreds of dollars, others are looking at thousands. A few have reported deposits exceeding $10,000, appearing overnight without explanation. The excitement is real, the temptation is overwhelming, and the trap is already set. Here's what's actually happening behind the scenes, and why financial experts are calling this one of the most dangerous situations taxpayers have faced in decades. The IRS recently processed a massive wave of tax adjustments, refunds, and corrections related to multiple filing seasons. They've been working through a backlog that dates back to the pandemic era, when everything went digital and processing systems were overwhelmed. In that chaos, their automated systems have been spitting out payments at an unprecedented rate. But here's the terrifying part that nobody's talking about on the news. These payments aren't all legitimate. Many of them are genuine errors, duplicate payments, or corrections that were calculated wrong by overwhelmed IRS computers, and the agency has already confirmed they're aware of the problem. They're not just aware, they're actively tracking every single erroneous payment, building databases of who received what, and they're preparing to take that money back with interest and penalties that could cripple your finances for years. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening to real people right now. Maria Rodriguez from Phoenix woke up in March to find $3,200 in her account from the IRS. She didn't question it. She assumed it was a delayed refund, maybe something related to child tax credits or earned income adjustments. She paid off her credit card debt, bought groceries for the month, and finally fixed her car's transmission that had been grinding for weeks. 2 months later, she received a letter from the IRS demanding the full amount back, plus interest calculated from the day it was deposited, plus a penalty for improper use of federal funds. Maria's story isn't unique, it's becoming the norm. In Ohio, a retired veteran named Thomas Mitchell received $4,700. He put it toward his daughter's college tuition, thinking it was part of a veteran's benefit adjustment. The IRS came back demanding $5,300, the extra $600 being penalties and interest. He didn't have it. His bank account went negative, his credit score dropped 120 points in 1 month because he couldn't cover his automatic payments. He's now facing potential liens on his home. The psychology of this situation is what makes it so dangerous. When money appears in your account from a government agency, your brain automatically assumes legitimacy. You think there's been an audit in your favor, or a recalculation of deductions, or some benefit you forgot you qualified for. Your mind creates narratives that justify the windfall because human beings are wired to accept good fortune without questioning it too deeply. That's exactly what makes the situation so predatory. Even though the IRS isn't trying to trick you, their incompetence is creating the same effect. Financial advisors across the country are being flooded with calls from panicked clients who spent IRS money they thought was theirs. The common thread in every story is the same. They didn't verify, they didn't call, they didn't wait. They saw money and they spent it. Now they're facing repayment demands that include penalties calculated at rates that would make credit card companies blush. The IRS charges interest on erroneous refunds at the federal short-term rate, plus 3%, compounded daily. That might not sound like much, but over several months, it adds up fast. What makes this even more complicated is that some of these deposits are actually legitimate. The IRS did issue real refunds and corrections during this period. Some people genuinely are owed money for various reasons, from amended returns to stimulus payment corrections to child tax credit adjustments that were miscalculated during the pandemic chaos. The problem is that without proper documentation, without that official letter explaining exactly what the payment is for, you have no way of knowing whether your deposit is real or a ticking time bomb. Here's what you absolutely must do right now if you've received an unexpected IRS deposit. First, do not touch that money. Transfer it to a separate savings account if you have to, but treat it like it's radioactive until you know for certain it's yours. Second, check your IRS account online through the official IRS website. You can create or access your account at irs.gov and view your tax records, payment history, and any notices they've sent you. Look for correspondence that explains the deposit. If there's nothing there, that's a massive red flag. Third, call the IRS directly. Yes, the wait times are insane. Yes, you might be on hold for 2 hours. Do it anyway. Use the main IRS phone number, not any number from an email or text message, because scammers are already exploiting this situation with fake IRS calls and phishing attempts. When you finally reach a human being at the IRS, have your social security number, the exact deposit amount, and the date it appeared ready. Ask them explicitly to verify whether this payment was intentional and what it's for. Get a reference number for your call. Document everything. Fourth, request written confirmation. If the IRS agent tells you the money is legitimately yours, ask them to send official documentation to your address on file explaining what the payment represents. Don't trust verbal confirmations alone. The IRS is notorious for giving contradictory information depending on which agent you speak with. Written documentation is your shield if they come back later claiming it was an error. Keep copies of everything, including your bank statements showing the deposit, notes from your phone calls, and any letters or notices you receive. Now, let's talk about what happens if you've already spent the money. This is where things get really ugly, but there are strategies to minimize the damage. If you receive a notice demanding repayment, do not ignore it. The absolute worst thing you can do is pretend it doesn't exist, and hope it goes away. The IRS has more power than almost any other creditor in America. They can garnish your wages without a court order, seize your bank accounts, file liens against your property, and intercept future tax refunds indefinitely until the debt is paid. Your first move is to respond immediately to any IRS notice. There are deadlines printed on these letters, usually 30 to 60 days, and missing them forfeits your right to dispute the claim or set up a payment plan. If you genuinely can't pay back the full amount immediately, the IRS offers several options. You can request an installment agreement, which lets you pay back the money over time, usually up to 72 months depending on the amount. You'll still pay interest, but it's better than having your accounts frozen. There's also something called an offer in compromise, where you negotiate with the IRS to settle the debt for less than you owe. This is incredibly difficult to qualify for, and requires proving that paying the full amount would create genuine financial hardship. You need documentation of your income, expenses, assets, and debts. The IRS accepts less than 40% of offer in compromise applications, but if you're approved, it can reduce your burden significantly. You'll need professional help for this, either from a tax attorney or a certified public accountant who specializes in IRS negotiations. Some people are exploring another angle, claiming financial hardship status. If you can prove that repaying the money would prevent you from meeting basic living expenses, the IRS might temporarily classify your account as currently not collectible. This doesn't forgive the debt, but it stops collection actions for a period while you get back on your feet. The interest keeps accumulating though, and they'll revisit your status periodically. It's a temporary relief, not a solution. The legal landscape around this issue is still developing. Some tax attorneys are arguing that if the IRS deposited money without proper explanation, and taxpayers spent it in good faith believing it was theirs, there's a reasonable cause defense against penalties. The tax code does include provisions for penalty relief when taxpayers can demonstrate they acted reasonably and in good faith, but this defense requires documentation that you tried to verify the payment, that you didn't receive clear communication from the IRS about its purpose, and that you had legitimate reasons to believe it was yours. Prevention is everything here. If you haven't received an unexpected deposit yet, make sure your IRS account information is up to date. Verify your address, your bank account information, and your email. The IRS is increasingly communicating through their online portal, and if your contact information is wrong, you might miss critical notices. Set up alerts on your bank account for any deposits over a certain threshold, so you're immediately aware when something unusual hits your account. This gives you time to investigate before you accidentally spend money that isn't yours. For those who are still waiting on legitimate refunds, this situation creates additional anxiety. You might receive a real refund and be terrified to touch it because of all these horror stories. The difference is documentation. When the IRS sends you money you're actually owed, they send a notice explaining it, usually a 846 code on your transcript indicating a refund approved and sent. Check your transcript regularly during tax season. If the money matches what your transcript says, and you have documentation supporting why you're owed that amount, you're probably safe. But verify anyway. One phone call could save you months of stress. The broader lesson here extends beyond just this specific IRS situation. It's about the fundamental principle of financial vigilance. Unexpected money is almost always suspicious. Whether it's from the IRS, from a bank error in your favor, from a mysterious inheritance notification, or from any source you weren't explicitly expecting, you need to verify before you spend. The legal principle of unjust enrichment applies in most situations, meaning if you receive money that isn't rightfully yours, and you spend it knowing or having reason to know it was an error, you can be held liable for its return plus damages. Comment below, "I will verify," if you're committed to checking any unexpected deposits before touching them, and make sure you're subscribed because I'm tracking this IRS situation daily, and I'll update you as new information emerges. Your financial future isn't worth the risk of assuming that surprise money is a gift. In this economy, with inflation still crushing household budgets and interest rates making everything more expensive, I understand the temptation to see that money as a lifeline. But that lifeline could be a noose if you're not careful. Protect yourself, verify everything, and never assume the government made a mistake in your favor without absolute proof. Settings. Use a clear male voice for the narrator. Use appropriate media. Use male. Clear, realistic voice. Don't use iStock. Use YouTube. Audio, library only.